All right, being honest with yourself, how many hours a day would you say you doom scroll? Um, an hour, 2 hours, 4, 6, maybe? For me personally, if I were to average it, it would probably be around two. Um, Probably like about an hour before I go to bed, an hour after I go to bed. And it's been worse in the past. At the height of my doom scrolling, I'd probably doom scroll 4, 5, 6 hours a day, depending on how much else I was doing that day. And I'm not alone in this. I think that the fact that we have the word doom scrolling, which comes from the infinite scroll, which in the grand scheme of things, most of us, especially if you're my age, remember when the infinite scroll wasn't a thing, but still had it for most of your life. I was born in '02. But how do we stop doom scrolling? I want to know that myself because I'd love to stop, only go on social media when I have a task I want to do or a certain amount of posts I want to look at or a certain kind of content. How do you stop doom scrolling? And that's what I want to talk about today. My name is Robin. You will find me under the moniker of the Eclectus on TikTok, on YouTube, on Tumblr, which we'll get to in a bit. But with the introductions out of the way, how do we stop or at the very minimum cut down on doom scrolling? And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to be speaking about this from a professional point of view. I'm speaking about this as someone who has managed to cut their doom scrolling time down pretty substantially. Oh, my hair is a mess. I just got out of the shower. That's besides the point. But 2 hours a day is where I'm currently averaging, Some days I'm better about it. Some days I'll be down to 1 hour, or hell, if I'm lucky, sometimes I'll be down to no doom scrolling that day. But on bad days, I'll slip and let 3 or 4 hours go by where I'm just scrolling through TikTok, I don't think anyone particularly likes being someone who doom scrolls, It's one of those things where no one really mentions the word in a positive light. It has doom in it, It's not fun, it's not joy scrolling, it's not fun scrolling, it's doom scrolling. It's one of those things that it's not really fun to do, but it's mindless and, it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable but not fun. Your brain likes it. You don't mind it, but it's not a fun thing to do. You're not reminiscing on all the doom scrolling you did last night, this morning. And it kind of just eats your time, I was reading Dune Messiah the other day, well, the other month actually. That was a while ago, and there's a certain passage that I don't have the exact quote off the top of my head, but basically what it comes down to is wasting someone's time, especially in a significant way, can be akin to slowly killing them, because they have a certain amount of hours in a day, a certain amount of hours in their life, and the more of that you fill with things that are bad for them is an hour they're never going to get back. 2 hours you're never going to get back. And I think we all kind of know that when it comes to doom scrolling. It's not good for us. It lowers our attention span. We don't feel good after doom scrolling, and we could be picking up a new skill, learning a new language, reading books, and all that jazz. So it's something that I think if there was a one size fits all way, easy to access way to stop doom scrolling, that would be fun. And I know a lot of people could be like, well, why don't you just quit social media? Which is somewhat impractical. I tried for a little bit, fall of last year, to delete pretty much all my social media. But there are reasons we don't do that, I think the biggest one being social pressures. Well, all our friends have social media. All our friends are sending us TikToks and sending us memes, and memes originate on TikTok and Instagram and Reddit. If we go without those, then we're missing out, or we feel like we're missing out. I don't think that deleting social media is bad. If that's the method you want to take, to cut down or end your doom scrolling. I think that's awesome. But I do want to acknowledge that it is a pretty impractical for a lot of people to do that, you know. It is not a one-size-fits-all method. Nothing really is. Again, if there was a one-size-fits-all method, people would be doing it. But I've been able to cut down, so let's kind of talk about what I've done to cut down on doom scrolling. And for me, I've kind of treated doom scrolling sort of like a diet, you know, a doom scroll diet. I've never dieted before in my life. I mean, I'm a pretty healthy person. I work out. My diet, my current food intake has never made me think to diet, but I know people who have dieted, and I've talked to them about it. And one thing is, with dieting, what a lot of people do is, well, they log what they eat in a day. Because a lot of habits that we partake in, we don't really actively think about. We kind of just do it in their habits, you know, force of habit. We just do them. We don't really question them. And I think applying that logic to doom scrolling, and for that matter, any short form content that we consume at a pretty high quantity, I think journaling and logging how much you do and actively paying attention to it is a very big first step. I don't think it is an only step. I mean, if you are logging that you doom scroll 5 or 6 hours a day and you don't do anything about it, then congrats, you just logged for nothing. But I think knowing, okay, well, the past week, 2 weeks, I've logged it, and I found that these are the times that I am most prone to doom scrolling, you know, and here is like the hours I get, and here's where I can cut down and replace that with something I would rather do or would rather actively do, I think is a really good first step. So step number one that helped me was I started logging how much time I spent doing doom scrolling, how much time I spent doom scrolling. And after that, I was able to move forward a bit, which brings me to my second point, which is set goals for yourself that align with a anti-doom scrolling notion, that you don't do for the sake of not doom scrolling. For example, I know not a lot of people love them. I love New Year's resolutions, though. Again, you don't need to do them, you know, and you can set a resolution at any time. But I like having that sort of calendar year to look back, you know, and you know, when it's December and everyone's Spotify Wrapped is coming out and people start looking back on everything they did that year, I like to have a goal, you know, and I think set goals that align with the end goal of doom scrolling less, without just being don't doom scroll. Like, for example, this year I pledged to get better at guitar. I knew the basics of guitar for a while, but never really got to a point where I would say I played guitar. I also said to read more. I didn't give myself a set number of books, but I read 10 books last year, so I'm aiming for 12. And also to run more, work out more, which I've also been doing a lot, which again, the year before I got back into running after a few years and I loved it. Run more. Those are 3 things that you can't really do while doom scrolling and actively are good for you, you know, reading, running, and picking up an instrument. And this can look different for everybody, but in having these goals, I'm actively taking time away from my phone, away from these short-term media, without actively thinking about how I have to do this to get away from short-term media. So set goals. Maybe you want to read more. Maybe you want to watch more movies, or maybe you want to go to more concerts or try new restaurants. These are all things that can help you replace that time spent doom scrolling social media and put it somewhere else. Again, this doesn't work for everybody. It worked for me. Again, this is fully subjective. And I also recommend kind of point number 3, maybe 2.5, 3. I'll say 3. Point 3: log what you are doing. I keep a media journal or a media blog on Tumblr. And this media blog, it helps me to see, oh, I read a lot less this week than I really was hoping for. Work really got ahead of me, and it was the first thing to go. Or, oh, I was meaning to play more guitar this week, but something happened. Next week I can fix it though. Because again, like we were saying earlier, when things become habit, we stop thinking about them, and when we stop thinking about them, we stop doing them sometimes. So I recommend keeping a log, not just to document how much you're doom scrolling, but how much you're keeping to non-doom scrolling things. And I feel like a lot of these solutions are also kind of training wheels items, you know? Once you do them enough, you're gonna just naturally do them without thinking them. But until you get to that point, you should keep a log, I feel like, in my opinion. In my opinion. One last point that I wanna bring up, point number 4, it is, again, works for some people, but not everybody. And that would be to, before you go into an app, sort of tell yourself, here's what I'm going to do. Write it down. Heck, I'd recommend writing it down. For example, you know what? I want to scroll on TikTok. I want to see what's going on. I'll spend 30 minutes and I'll only really try to look for these kind of searches. Or I'll send memes. I'll look at my friends' memes. You know, I'm only going on TikTok today to see what XYZ person sent me and getting off. You know, because when you have that goal in mind, it might not always stick, you know? It's sort of like, oh, I'll clean my room at 1 o'clock. Oh, well, it's 1:05. I guess I'll do it at 1:30. I get that, but for me, I would be like, oh man, on TikTok, I just finished 15 minutes of scrolling like I said I'd do. I should be done. I set a goal for myself. There was a reason I set that, you know? Again, a lot of these goals do not work for everybody, and you really need to do some trial and error to find out what actually keeps you from that infinite scroll. This worked for me, but it's not perfect. I'm not down to 0. I catch myself doom scrolling all the time still. But I mean, 2 hours or 2 hours on average compared to 5 hours on average, I'd say that's a win. I would say that is a huge win. So I do really want to know, what do you do to stop doom scrolling? If you have made that your goal, do you have any tricks I didn't mention? Do you have any critiques of what I have used? I think we can always serve each other by figuring out what methods work for some of us and not all of us, and get new ideas that we may have never heard of. With that being said, y'all have a great week.